You didn't get here by accident. It wasn't the algorithm, it wasn't the boredom of 2 in the morning. It wasn't your finger scrolling aimlessly across the screen. If you are watching this today, July 19th, it is because something inside you has changed temperature over the last 3 days, and your internal field is asking for instruction. Perhaps you have noticed a silent restlessness that won't go away. Perhaps you woke up in the middle of the night, thinking about decisions you had been putting off for months. Perhaps you looked at the people around you and felt, without being able to explain it, that there is a new distance between who you were 6 months ago and who you are now. Perhaps you opened your phone expecting distraction and instead found this broadcast. This is not a coincidence, this is an intersection. In the next few minutes, you will understand exactly what is happening to you. You will understand why this specific date is making so many people feel the same thing at the same time without knowing why. And most importantly, you will understand what needs to be done so that this window doesn't close on you as it does for the majority. Because this is the first truth you need to swallow. What is happening today divides humanity into 2 groups. Both groups will feel the same thing, but only one will do something about it. The majority will feel this energy and call it stress. They will feel it and call it exhaustion. They will feel it and call it a midlife crisis. At 30, at 40, at 50. They will look at the ceiling at 3 in the morning and blame the coffee they drank too late. They will fight with their partner without understanding what they are fighting about. They will cry in the shower and call it PMS. They will lose patience with their work and call it burnout. And in 10 days, when the peak of this window passes, they will return exactly to the same place they were, with the same job they hate, with the same draining relationship, with the same version of themselves that no longer fits. And the minority to which you belong, because if you didn't, you would have closed this video in the first 10 seconds, will recognize the sign for what it is. They will stop. They will breathe. They will ask what is being shown. And they will use this window as what it truly is, a calibration point in the middle of the year. I need to be very direct with you before we go deeper. Forget the idea that the universe will descend from the sky and fix your life. Forget the promise that a magical date will flip the switch without you doing anything. A portal is not an astronomical event. A portal is not something that happens to you. A portal is the exact point where the cost of remaining stuck in your current life becomes greater than the terror of taking the next step. You take the step. And then the ground appears. Never before. Never without you. July 19th, then, is not a promise. It is pressure. It is a day when the internal structure of many people who had been cracking for months officially begins to give way. It is the day when the mask weighs more than the face. It is the day when the body refuses to continue carrying what the mind insisted on pretending it could handle. And that is why the first sign, the quietest, the easiest to ignore, is always invisible. It does not appear in the newspaper. It does not come in a headline. It is not an external event you can film and post. It appears inside. It appears as a question that you start asking yourself and can no longer turn off. A question like, is this really what I came here to do? A question like, if I died tomorrow, what would I leave interrupted forever? A question like, why am I living a life that I myself wouldn't choose again? If you have caught yourself with these questions in the last week, you are not having a bad day. You are not clinically depressed. You are not frustrated for no reason. You are receiving in your own body the data that this video came to confirm. A part of you already knows that the next version of your life, it won't fit within the molds of the previous version, and that part of you is trying to speak. If that part could speak with words, it would be easier. It speaks with symptoms. It speaks with dreams. It speaks with this strange insomnia that isn't anxiety. It is a summons. Now I need to take you to the second movement, because explaining why you feel what you feel is what separates superstition from engineering. The right question is not, why am I feeling this now? The right question is, why wasn't I feeling this before? Because this restlessness, this feeling that something is out of place, it wasn't born this week. It has been inside you for years. You were the one who was anesthetized. The anesthesia has a name, an address, and a zip code. The anesthesia is automated routine. It is the diet that makes you slow enough not to feel. It is the consumption of content that occupies your mind, so you don't hear what the silence would tell you in 5 minutes. It is the relationship you maintain because ending it is more work than pretending. It is the job you hold because quitting would require listening to a question you swear you don't know the answer to, but you do. It is performative religion. It is the addiction to productivity. It is going out on the weekend just to avoid spending Saturday night awake with yourself. All of this works. All of this protects. Until it stops working. And what we call a shift in consciousness is nothing more than the moment when these layers of anesthesia begin to fail simultaneously. You can no longer watch a series without feeling strange. You can no longer enter a meeting without realizing, with a clarity that frightens you, that no one there is saying what they are actually thinking. You can no longer frequent certain places without feeling your body grow heavy before you even walk in. You look at people you loved for 10 years and feel a linguistic distance. It is as if overnight you stopped understanding the native language of your old life. Many people panic at this point. Many people mistake this distance for a defect. Many people think they have gone mad, that they are becoming arrogant, that they are turning cold, that they have lost their sense of humor. And then comes the second layer of the tragedy. When the person in the middle of this transition tries to push the restlessness back inside, tries to extinguish the lucidity, tries to convince themselves that everything is fine, tries to turn the anesthesia machines back on, and that is when causeless apathy sets in, because there is no such thing as causeless apathy. There is consciousness being violently repressed so as not to disturb those around you. What is happening to you now, then, is the opposite of that. It is an invitation to the inverse. It is your internal structure saying there is no longer any room left inside to keep being who you are not. And the right answer is not to pretend you aren't listening. The right answer is to begin operating as one who has already heard. But there is a huge technical problem there, and it is honest to say this now before we continue. Feeling that something needs to change is the easy part. Everyone feels it. Every day, tens of millions of people around the world feel exactly this. The hard part is not feeling. The hard part is translating the feeling into movement. The hard part is taking this raw energy, this wordless call, and transforming it into daily decisions that reorganize your life from the inside out. Without this, the call becomes frustration. Without this, intuition becomes noise. Without this, you enter a window like today's, you feel everything. You cry a little, you promise to change. And 2 weeks from now, you are back in the same bed, in the same thought, in the same exhaustion. That is why I prepared Magia and 28 exercícios, as 28 chaves do despertar for you. It exists for a very specific reason. You do not need one more inspiration to feel alive for an afternoon. You need a 28-day structure, an entire lunar cycle, to convert what you are feeling now into real direction. 1 key per day, 1 exercise per day, a small physical, practical movement that dismantles from within what was blocking the way. This is what you will receive in the first pinned comment of this video, right below. By clicking there, you will see how each of the 28 keys was designed to recognize the signals of your soul, integrate the shadow you have been sweeping under the rug, and turn restlessness into decision. If you arrived at this video today, this is not a coincidence to be romanticized. It is a coordinate to be answered. And if you already know this as you listen to me, do the following. Write the word pronto in the comments, that's all. 1 word. It acts as an energetic signature that your internal structure is confirming to you what your mind is still trying to deny. Now we need to understand where this reading of windows, of portals, of specific dates comes from. Because this is not a TikTok invention. It is not a trend born in 2023. Before the digital calendar existed, before Google Calendar existed, before the 5-day work week and the compressed weekend existed, human beings organized life around the sky. It wasn't mysticism, it was engineering. The ancients observed the sun, the moon, the stars, crop cycles, changes in animal behavior. And based on this observation, they decided when to plant, when to harvest, when to rest, when to give birth, when to die. The sky was not decoration. The sky was a clock, a map, and an advisor. And within this constant observation of the sky and nature, they discovered something that our culture has unlearned wholesale. The great internal movements of human life accompany great external movements of the cosmos. Not because a star decides your fate, but because you are part of the system. Just as the high tide follows the full moon, there are tides within your body, within your mind, within your consciousness, that follow specific moments of the year. There are peaks of collective crisis, there are peaks of collective expansion. There are peaks when the psychic atmosphere of billions of people becomes thinner, more permeable, more susceptible to the call. The ancients called these moments doors. The Egyptians had doors, the Mayans had doors, the Babylonians had doors, the Celts had doors. Each tradition used a different vocabulary, but the reading was the same. There are days in the year when the veil separating automatic routine from awakened consciousness becomes thinner. And on these days, those with trained eyes cross through, those who don't, sleep. July 19th is one of these doors within the mid-year cycle. It is not the only one, it is not the last, but it is the one that is open now. And understanding this changes everything, because it removes you from the childish idea that someday you will change. There is today, there is now, and there is a gigantic technical difference between initiating a transformation on a day when the field is saturated, dense, opaque, versus initiating it on a day when the field is more transparent. It's like planting a seed. You can plant in dry, hard soil in the middle of a rainless summer. The seed might even germinate, but the effort is much greater, and the mortality rate of the sapling is much higher. Or you can plant in a window where the earth is already prepared, the temperature is right, the sky is on the side of life, and the same seed becomes a tree in half the time with twice the strength. It's not the seed that changes, it's the window. The ancients knew this, and that is why spiritual decisions were tied to the sacred calendar. Marriage wasn't on the bride's preferred day, it was on the right day. Harvest wasn't at one's convenience, it was at the right time. Initiation wasn't when you felt like it. It was when the portal opened. Our civilization has completely lost this technique. We kept the functional calendar, but lost the sacred calendar. And the result of this is an entire multitude trying to initiate gigantic changes on neutral dates, spending 10 times more energy than necessary, and giving up before the change to take root. You who are listening to me right now are being returned to this ancient technique. You are being reminded that there is a right moment, and the right moment for you is this one. If you feel you need to anchor this before the distractions of life carry you away. The first pinned comment has Magia M28, exercicios waiting for you with the complete schedule, day by day, synchronized exactly with the lunar cycle that concludes during the process. It is not decoration, it is engineering. And the decision must be today, because the next 48 hours hold the bulk of this window's opening. Now comes the part no one warns you about. And no one warns you because if they did, many people would give up before starting. Going through an inner awakening is not pretty, it is not comfortable, it does not come wrapped in ambient music. What we call elevation of consciousness is, in practice, a civil war within your own nervous system. On one side, you have the old consciousness, and the old consciousness is not the enemy. The old consciousness is the set of beliefs, habits, fears, survival strategies, and constructed identity that kept you alive until now. It worked. It fulfilled its role. It is the reason you managed to hold things together until you were 30, 40, 50 years old. It deserves respect, but it has a limit. It was built for a version of you that no longer exists. It was programmed to protect a person who was smaller, with smaller fears, with a smaller repertoire, with a smaller hunger. It repeats to this day the decisions that made sense for that version. And that is where the problem starts. Your internal size has grown, but the program has remained the same. It is like wearing a shoe 2 sizes too small. It is not the foot that is wrong. It is the shoe that failed to keep up. On the other side, you have the new consciousness. And the new consciousness is not something that arrives from the outside. The new consciousness is what appears when you start to refuse to operate on autopilot. It is the version of you that already sees the pattern. that already knows which conversation is draining you, that already knows which decision you are putting off to avoid bothering those you love, that already knows which lie you tell yourself every day at 7 in the morning in front of the mirror. The new consciousness is not magic. It is hygiene. It is returning to the internal world the same attention you learned to give to the external world. And that is why the battle is brutal. Because the old consciousness does not die by asking for permission. It dies screaming, it kicks, it sabotages. It makes you fight out of nowhere with your partner on the day you had decided to meditate. It makes you forget the commitment you made to yourself. It makes you get sick on the day you were going to start your new routine. It makes you collapse into bed at 10 p.m. Exhausted, unable to write the page you had promised to write. This is not your weakness. This is resistance. And resistance is a sign of proximity. You only encounter strong resistance when you are close to breaking through something real. Life does not sabotage small changes. Life sabotages big changes. If you are facing a level of self-sabotage you have never faced before, that is a diagnosis. It means the new consciousness is entering with enough force to destabilize the old building. And the old building, upon sensing the real threat, triggers every mechanism available. What the ancients called an initiatory trial is this. It is not a moral test. It is not the universe testing you to see if you deserve it. It is the mechanical clash between a system that wants to continue and a system that wants to be born. And in this clash, the only vote that decides is yours. Write in the comments now if you are feeling this in your skin, a very specific phrase. Eu reconheço a guerra. Not because this phrase has magical power, but because naming the battle is the first act of command. He who names distinguishes. He who distinguishes decides. He who decides advances. And here you need to understand something uncomfortable about the people around you. A part. Them, often the part you love the most, is deeply invested in your old consciousness. Not out of malice, out of comfort. Your old version was predictable to them. Your old version made them feel safe. Your old version was used as a mirror to justify their own choices. When you begin to upgrade, you shatter that mirror. And when a mirror breaks, the one looking into it reacts. Expect to hear things like "you've changed." Expect to hear "you're acting strange." Expect to hear "I don't recognize you." Expect to hear "do you think you're better than everyone else now?" Expect to hear "that's just the influence of that content you've been watching." And this is where most people back down. Most do not back down out of laziness. Most back down because they cannot bear the relational cost of transformation. They prefer to continue being loved as the small version, rather than be misunderstood as the real version. And this is the fork in the road. You don't ascend without dropping weight. You don't pass through the door with everyone by your side. Some relationships will adjust, others will drift away, and some, very specific ones, will break. Not because you've turned cold, but because the relationship was maintained by an unconscious contract that only functioned as long as you were smaller. New size, new contract. No new contract, no relationship. This is not punishment. This is the mathematics of vibration. And understanding this pulls you out of victimhood. You stop feeling betrayed by life and start operating as one who understands the cost of the climb. There are concrete, physical, observable signs that appear when your internal system is undergoing a reconfiguration of this magnitude. These are not mystical signs. They are symptoms of reorganization. And when you identify them, you stop being frightened by them. And when you stop being frightened by them, you start working in their favor, not against them. First sign, intuition becomes loud. You start to know things before they appear. You think of a person and they call. You feel that a conversation will be difficult, and it is. You enter an environment and know without rationalizing whether you can trust who is there. This is not a new gift. This is noise being removed. Intuition has always been functioning. It was just muffled by layers and layers of mental overload. When the layers thin out, the antenna receives. Second sign, need for isolation. And here many people panic. The person who has always been sociable, who has always had a full schedule, who has always been the life of the party, suddenly starts making excuses to stay home, prefers to cancel, prefers not to answer, prefers not to be available. It is not apathy, it is triage. Your system, understanding that it is undergoing a structural renovation, automatically reduces exposure to environments that drain your energy without giving anything back. It is like a building that closes temporarily for renovations. If you know the process, you accept the phase. If you don't know it, you think you're sick. Third sign, hunger for knowledge. And not just any knowledge. It is a very specific type of hunger. You start to be attracted to themes you would never have looked at 2 years ago. Books you didn't know existed seem to fall into your lap. Content you thought was ridiculous begins to make disturbing sense. You read sentences that sound as if they were written exclusively for you in a language you recognize without knowing where you learned it. This is code recognition. You are not learning from scratch, you are remembering. Fourth sign, a clear sensation that a stage of life is ending. It is not a desire to change, it is knowing. It is a certainty over which you have zero control. You look at your job and know that it is over, even if you remain there for another 10 months. You look at your house and know that it is no longer your home, even if you are still on the lease. You look at a relationship and know it is already gone, even if the bodies still sleep in the same bed. This sensation does not come in words, it comes as a temperature. And once it appears, it does not go away. It can be postponed, it cannot be turned off. Fifth sign, changes in sleep. Vivid symbolic dreams with repeating structures. Insomnia between 3 and 5 in the morning, with no clear physiological cause. Fatigue that is disproportionate to what you did during the day. All of this is the body processing information at a deeper level than the mind can keep up with. Sleep in these cycles ceases to be rest. It becomes a laboratory. Sixth sign, aversion to noise, to excess, to shallow stimulation. You begin to tolerate less and less the programs that used to offer you distraction before. You turn off radios, notifications, messaging groups, not because you have become grumpy, because the internal system is asking for silence to process. When a computer is updating its operating system, you don't go around opening 30 tabs on top of it. You let it finish. If you recognize 3 or more of these signs in yourself, now this week, this month, you are not going through a strange phase. You are in the middle of a reconfiguration, and the worst mistake you can make is to try to force yourself back to the old normality with brute force. It is like interrupting a surgery halfway through. What was being opened to be reorganized remains exposed without a new structure to hold it together. And it is exactly here at this point that most people fail. Not for lack of perception, for lack of method. The person recognizes they are changing, accepts that they are changing, wants the change to go to the end, and halfway there gets lost. Because awakening without structure is suffering without direction, and suffering without direction, no matter how noble it may seem, exhausts the fuel before the change can consolidate. It was for this exact point, the point where the perception already exists but the structure does not yet, that I built Magia in 28 exercicios. Each of the 28 keys is a short, direct, physical exercise designed for you to do in whatever life condition you are in. It doesn't matter if you are in a full house, if you are in the middle of a divorce, if you are working 12 hours a day, if you have a small child, if you are in a financial crisis. The keys were designed to operate within real chaos, not in an imaginary retreat life. And at the end of the 28 days, the restlessness you brought is transformed into language. The shadow you were pushing away is recognized and integrated, and the direction you couldn't see becomes visible to the naked eye. Access is in the first pinned comment, right below the video, and the window to start today is limited for a simple reason. The journey is synchronized with the lunar cycle, and starting outside the cycle wastes a considerable part of the effect. If you have made it this far, you already know what to do. And now to close, I need to give you back a truth that you already knew, but that needs to be spelled out in no uncertain terms. July 19th, on its own, changes nothing. No date changes anything. No moon changes anything. No eclipse changes anything. No portal changes anything. No window changes anything. What changes is the person who decides to use the date as a platform for decision, and without that person, the most powerful of portals passes over their life without leaving a trace. You do not need an external cosmic event to transform yourself. You need yourself. The external event is an invitation, not a substitute. And this is where true spiritual pragmatism separates itself from fantasy. Fantasy says, the universe will do it for you. Pragmatism says, The universe opens the door, you walk through the door. Fantasy waits. Pragmatism executes. Fantasy dreams of being someone else. Pragmatism does one small thing differently today, does another tomorrow, and at the end of 28 days, they are a different person, not because they wanted it so badly, but because they built, brick by brick, decision by decision, the new structure from within. The real question that remains for you then is not, what does this date mean? The real question is, what is the next move I need to make today, right now, while this window is still open? It could be a conversation you have been putting off for 8 months. It could be a resignation that was already alive in your chest. It could be a breakup that was already a reality, but you hadn't made official yet. It could be a request for forgiveness. It could be an apology. It could be a registration. It could be a first therapy session. It could be a message sent. It could be a message deleted. It could be a public stance. It could be a silence that will be worth more than 1,000 words. Whatever the movement, it needs to happen while the internal temperature is still high. Because that is what most people don't understand about these moments. The courage you have today will not be available next week. The clarity you have today will begin to cloud over tomorrow. The energy you have right now while you listen to me is a window breeze. And windows close, they close fast, and they close completely. And when they close, the next real and serious window only returns at another point in the cycle, with the same theme knocking at the door, but now with a higher price. Do not let this window pass. Not because I need you to do something, but because a part of you, the part that already knows, will feel it for a long time if you pretend you didn't hear. If this broadcast found you today, and you understood that it is not entertainment, that it is a coordinate, you already know where to anchor the next step. The first pinned comment has complete access to Magia M28 Exercicios with the 28 keys ready to start today, synchronized with the current lunar cycle. You won't need to decide everything now. You will need to decide one thing: to start. And once you start, the path carries you. That is the difference between inspiration and engineering. Inspiration wakes you up one night. Engineering sustains you for 28 days, until the new you is irreversible. And so as not to leave you here like someone ending a chapter without delivering the next one, what you just heard was only the preparation. The video that appears on the screen now is the direct continuation of this one. It shows what happens after the window of July 19th closes, and what the next cycles will demand from those who have started to move now. If you want to understand the complete map of what is beginning in your life, the first 60 seconds of that video already reorganize your timeline. Click on it. It was made for this exact hour. And before you leave, let me be honest about one last thing. This channel does not work like a portfolio of loose videos. Each broadcast here is a coordinate within a larger map, a map that follows the cycles of the year, the windows, the portals, the collective decisions that are being made by many people at the same time without them knowing. If you are not subscribed, you will receive pieces of the map, out of order, without the context that ties everything together. And without context, each isolated video loses half its power. If you understood what was being said today, the least you can do for yourself is to ensure that the next chapters do not pass by unnoticed. Subscribe, turn on the bell, and let this map continue to be delivered to your field while this phase of your life unfolds. July 19th is not a date, it is a mirror. And what you see in it today, honestly, is what you will find for the rest of the year. Do not let the window use you. Use the window.